M0FXB Hamtech. I've been putting off installing this board for a few weeks now. My soldering is very poor. Then I thought, let's just go for it. You know, I can't solder, I'm inexperienced, but let's just dive in and do it. So watch the rest of the video. The chip that we fit is the SI4732 A10, and they're about £15 from Aliexpress. And it's made for the UV-K5, and then there's you add some firmware at the end, and there are full instructions how to do this. And I watched Omet's video because I just followed it step by step, and I did find it very hard. But it took me 2-3 hours painstakingly trying to solder this. I did my best. I tended to use snips to remove the items rather than just to remove them by using the soldering iron. I just found it was safer. So watch the rest, and then at the end we'll load the firmware. And even if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because at least we tried, and we can always go back to the radio and tweak what we've done, because I would say 3/4 of the soldering is quite basic soldering. It's just the fine tuning of a the very small couple of components that you have to fit, and wires that you have to add that are very fiddly. But hey, just dive in, use some very fine tweezers, a good quality fine soldering iron, plenty of flux, plenty of a method to clean your iron as you go along, and bright light, magnifying glasses, and then just hold those tiny items steady whilst you dab the solder on. 0FXB, welcome to my channel. So we've decided to dive in and give this a go. I've chose this BAOFENG to use because it's the classic sort of black and white one. There's the components that come, and obviously the ones that we're most worried about are the small ones, but that's okay. We're just going to dive in and give it a go, because I've had so many people message me saying they can't do this because they can't solder, it's too small, and I'm one of those people. So I've got myself a magnifying glass here, I've got some heavy duty glasses, I've got lots of light here shining down so I can have a clear view of it. So the first step is, let's just take this radio apart, which is very easy to do. Why do we do this mod? Because it means we can receive 15 megahertz and down. So effectively it's going to be a full HF receiver transceiver, and then we can put that special firmware that's been made for this extra board that we fit. And the reason we've had to fit this extra board, which I've just dropped, is because the chip here is what's going to allow all those extra frequencies. So we're just going to dive in. Even if I fail, I'm still going to release the video, because a fail is still a learning part of the learning, and I'm going to give it a go. And that's what the board looks like. And if you want to see the sort of size of the board, but you know what it's like with your glasses on, all magnified, concentrating, a cup of coffee, radio in the background, just plod on with it and do your best. That's all you can do, and I'll show you the steps as I do it. In the kit you get the board, the tiny the capacitors are they, and this one here, is that a resistor? You're going to need some fine tweezers, which we've got, came with my solder kit, some fine snips, screwdriver just to pry out the radio when we open it up, some flux. I've actually also got solder paste, which I've hardly used, but you basically squirt it on, heat it up, and it turns into solder. I'm talking about, it turns into metal, and it's the low temperature one. So we might use it. I always have lots of alcohol pads. You can buy 100 for like £5. They last me about 6 months. Just a bog standard budget soldering iron. The key with me, I find, is that if you want things to work, get yourself a sponge and wet it, and just keep cleaning the soldering iron as you go. And then when you want things to connect, just make sure you dab a bit of solder onto the iron first, and then that sort of allows then the heat to transfer to the item that you're either removing or installing. If you just go with a dry soldering iron, I find that it just doesn't work. So that's my tip, is clean it, add some solder to the tip. Literally just do that. Get some solder on there. You want it on there don't want it to look all crusty. And then things start to, the heat starts to transfer. Right, so I'm listening to HubNet in the background. Now, first thing is remove the battery. These come apart so easy. Just undo, take the antenna off, pull the knob off, literally just pull it off. Antenna off, pull the knob off, and you'd think that you have to undo these, but you actually don't. you just literally just lever up from that gap there, which we're going to do now. Just put that in there and just lever it up, or you can get a smaller one. Now, yeah, if you're more careful, you won't cause the damage that I caused, but yeah, it comes up like so, and just pull it up. And the thing's apart. It's literally that easy to get it apart. And then I'm gonna drop a bit of solder there. Just a bit of solder here. I'm gonna remove the speaker. I literally just dabbed the solder on and they just came off. Just dabbed it. So just to flip back the screen, it's only held on one side here. Just get it in there with a small screwdriver like this, and you clip it, and then it comes loose and you can pull it back. As you pull it back, you'll see that there is another plastic clip at the back. So you're going to go back like so, and then yeah, put something underneath the edge, not to strain it, because we need to get here and remove that orange coloured item. So I'll just add some heat to it and just carefully take it off. So that first component that was here, the pink, the orangey colour one, in the end I just snipped it off. It was just easier. I'll clean it up now. There you are. Not sure if leaving the board on the, the heat sink is an easier option regarding heat transfer. But anyway, that part's off. To fit this resistor, we're going to remove this screw. And yes, I have been watching Omet's video, so thank you, Omet. So we're going to remove this screw and then solder this component from here to here, from this solder point to here. Okay, it's soldered from here to here. Screws been removed, so that was not too bad. The tiny one we're going to fit, I'm going to do that right at the end. I'm going to do everything else and do that last, because I think that'll build my confidence as I solder. So the next thing I'm going to do is try and remove this chip here, and these two here have to be removed. These two and this chip. Yeah, well, I'm not recommending it, but I just snipped it off because I found it a lot easier just to snip that off. It went flying somewhere, but it's off, and I'm going to do the same with these two components here. So I've snipped off those two devices. I'm going to dab those is 8 components just here. Dab them just with solder, just to make sure there's, good for connecting to, and some flux. Okay, and so I have been cheating and using my snips to snip things off, but it's worked so far. And the next step is to get this board in place, in the correct place. Alright, so it's a good bit of engineering, but look, you can see where you've got these 8 connections, you need to make these connections work. 1, 2, 3 is 5. If you turn it round, place it here, line it up, and Omet used sticky tape to just keep it in place. And then once you've got them to, once you've soldered and connected them here, then check the continuity as well. You're going to need to solder to that there as well. So I've fixed it down just with a band there to hold it in place. I'm going to dab a bit of solder in a couple of places and then remove the band and put some flux on there first. But you can see just there where the gold bit is. And so yeah, going well so far. Okay, well, I've got it on there. I'm going to remove that band, and we've done a continual, we tested that there's continue, I can't even say the word continue. It does connect with my circuit tester, continuity test. So, it's quite hard to see, but you tap this side, and I've checked each one. I've made sure they're not touching each other as well. So yeah. It looks messy, but I've cleaned it all up with my alcohol. I've tested that it's connecting. It's obviously a good fix there. So yeah, on to the next part. So this is the tiny chip we've got to move. So let's just whip it off. I might even use snips. Yeah, snipped it off, then added some solder back on. Well, I think I got it on there, but it's so small. But you can see it's there. I just held it with tweezers and dabbed it either side with some solder. It's really hard to tell if it's on there, but it's not moving. I can always come back to it. I don't really know how to test it, see if it's connected. But anyway, it's on there. The main board's on there. Move on. So we now need to add 2 jumper wires on here and here. Right, well, the jumpers are on, and that's the end of it. So I'm literally just going to put it back together and just fingers crossed that something works. Load the firmware. But you know, the main thing is dive in, give it a go, and you can always go back to it and try more. The screen just goes back on. It just clips back into place. Just clips in. You just got to be wary of the resistor. Slip it back into the case. Just solder your speaker wires back on. Speaker wires back on. Then you got here's a little plastic thing. Just remember to put that in the gap first before you put the radio in. Just slots in that little black bit there, where my thumb is, and then slide it in. Push it, it just slots into place. I'm not expecting it to actually work, but at least I gave it a go. It has come on, but it doesn't mean it's working. Well, it has come on. And let's get the volume knob on there. This is what it sounds like at the moment. Let's load the firmware on. But we are getting something from the radio. Let's get the firmware on there. I get the firmware loading program from IJV, so thanks IJV, because it just works well. And there it is there, and we'll click it, and that's what it looks like at the moment. We're not in firmware mode. And you could take a backup once the cable is connected, just a normal UV-5R cable. Then go over to KD8CC amateur radio, thank you very much. Scroll to the bottom and the firmware link is there. And you can see as you saw at the beginning there, lots of instructions and photographs. And remember, I still don't think mine's going to work, but I'm going to load the firmware and have a play. And so there, right at the bottom, it says packed bin with a red arrow, so I'm going to click that. Download that one. So you go over to this link. This is just a photograph, and it takes you here to the release page. A direct link will be there, and I'm going to click that. Downloads the firmware that's just put in my saved files there, top left. Just see it here, up here, and now we're going to go back to that software. Like I said, you can read the calibration, save it on this one, and the configuration with IJV. So we'll turn it off, turn it on, torch is on, we're in firmware mode, and then just plug our cable in, like so, firmware mode, and hopefully the software will know that we're in firmware mode. Go right click, device manager, oh, wrong one, device manager. Like so, find the COM that we're using. Like I said, they're just UV-5R cables. Looks like we're in 8 by the looks of it, so let's try number 8. Go down to 8 and it should detect it. Yeah, look, it says it straight away. That's what I love about this firmware. It knows we're in firmware mode. And then we're going to go right firmware, and then it's up to us to select the correct firmware. So we went to our downloads, there it is there, CEC04 packed bin, click that. And it's going in. So the radios, even though the modification may not have worked, everything is everything is functioning as normal. Whether we receive anything, and now you could hear that we were receiving something. So that's loading up nice. Cup of tea here that you probably can't see. Invisible tea. Right, firmware's done. Like so. And then we'll have to have a close look at the radio. Okay, we're at the radio. Apparently we just hold down the 0 button, so we'll try that. And it becomes this. So I've never used it, of course. So, wow, what's all that? I literally don't even know how to use that. Ham band, 80, 1.9, 2.7, 80 meters, 40. There are numbers here. Let's try pushing a number. So 40 is the best for me. Is 40 on here? 7, 8, 60, 120. No, I'm not seeing 40. 60 meters. 160. AM, F, that's broadcast. Ham, low frequency, 60 meters. Let's just press 1 anyway. 6. Yeah, and it takes you there. Of course, I haven't got an 80 meter antenna. I'll connect what I have got. Sounds a bit rough, but it says AM there. So when we press the menu button, this black box moves across. Like so. Band, is that step? Yes, step. LNA, bandwidth, BFO. So if we leave it on band, it says 40 now, and then you go up and down, you can select like so. We're still in AM at the moment. That's the next learn. So we'll leave it in 40. Go down with the frequency. Like so. Up and down with the frequency. And also see now when you press this twice, it does show all the other bands. Look. 1 to 7 shows those bands. Press it again. Then you start to see all the 40 meter ham bands. 1, numbered. Number 1. Just pressing buttons now. Does that look like broadcast radio? Let's go to 94. Well, at least that still works. Well, that's good. At least we know that part is working. Back to the bands. 1. When you press exit, it becomes a normal radio, the normal QUANSHENG. Hold down the 0 and go into that sort of mode. Pressing the star is moving it back and forth. Different steps, or you can go, get the steps this way. Bandwidth, etc. When I went F0, look, it took me to 40, was that 70 megahertz, 4 meters then. See that? I was just pressing, and look, 70 megahertz. FM as well. So changing modes in the end was holding down the F button. Change the step, can't we, just by going, wasn't it menu, then enter, was it? Nope. Let's go like so, menu, and then up and down. There you go. Can we type frequency? No, that's fine. Let's hold it up. So I think that's enough for now. I've got more to learn. I'm not even sure if it's worked, but remember, I can go back into it. I can tweak things that I've soldered. You know, if a component isn't quite connecting, I can test it. But at least I've done 95% of it. And if it's not quite there, at least we tried. Bye for now, 7-3.